The final circle. Ba-da-dun-dun. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Today's going to be about 10 pro tips for the final circle in Warzone because God is it hard to survive and win once it gets to that point in the game. Welcome back to COD Trendy. Let's get into the video. Number 10, don't play aggressively in third party instead. Playing aggressively in the final circle is a surefire way to get killed very quickly. Although there are some famous streamers that can get a ridiculous amount of kills by playing aggressively towards the end of a match, most players will probably find themselves at a disadvantage against players that are camping behind trees and other structures. The best way to go about getting kills in the final circle would be to third party another firefight instead so that the enemies won't know what hit them. Playing aggressively in the final circle can work for some players, however it can also be a quick death sentence. Number 9, stay close to teammates. A lot of players may already realize this, however it is common for teammates to run off from their squad if they see an enemy that they want to attempt to kill, or if there is loot on the ground. It is best to stick close to teammates and be in the same facility, or trees, or buildings if possible, because otherwise a player could get cut off from their teammates and end up being defeated swiftly by a full squad of players. Number 8, carry a smoke grenade. Smoke grenades aren't quite as powerful as other equipment such as gas grenades and decoy grenades. However, during the final circle, smoke grenades can be essential to surviving, especially if the player has to run through an open area with no cover whatsoever. Smoke grenades will shield the player from enemy eyes, and this is one of the most important things for players to have in their inventory in the final circle, especially if they aren't already carrying equipment or if the player has already used their equipment.
There's 2 loadouts right here.
Number 7, abandon any vehicles. Some players think that it will be advantageous to attempt to run over enemies within the final circle if it ends up in a flat piece of land with no buildings. However, this is a terrible idea because with so many enemies in close proximity to the player's vehicle, it will be easy to get blown up. And this is a risk that players should not take under any circumstances. This applies to both helicopters and land vehicles. Number 6, only use explosive weapons and grenades when it is necessary. Grenades are great for forcing enemies out of tight spots and killing them in very few hits. However, because the final circle is usually in such an open area, it is not beneficial to draw the attention of every enemy nearby by throwing a grenade and creating a loud sound. There are a few occasions where it will be advantageous to use grenades, such as finishing off a down player. However, otherwise, it is unlikely that the grenade will ever even hit, and it just isn't worth the risk of being noticed by every enemy on the map. Number 5, make sure to obtain a loadout drop before the final few circles. The loadout drop was an interesting new mechanic that was implemented within Warzone, and many fans quickly grew fond of it because it allowed players to customize their own unique loadout and bring it to the match with them. Unfortunately, there are many players that don't realize this feature to its full potential, and as such, it is something that new players should try to improve on and always grab their loadout before heading into the final few circles. Without doing this, many players will be left with mediocre weapons, equipment, and no perks, which is much worse than equipping a custom loadout. Number 4, peek doors when opening them. This is a tip that can be applied to the entire match. However, it becomes especially important when players are in close proximity to enemies, such as in the final circle. If the final few circles end up near a bunch of buildings, then the player should make sure to peek them before opening doors, because it will allow them to slowly open them instead of slamming them open, creating a loud sound for enemies to hear. All players will have to do for this is aim down their weapon before opening a door. Number 3, watch the edges of the circle carefully. The edges of the circle can be a great place to get kills in the final few circles because enemies may be running into the zone, and they won't have much time to focus on whether or not the player is targeting them. It is very beneficial to watch the edges of the circle instead of focusing on the enemies that may be more difficult to take down, such as enemies that are already behind cover or inside of buildings. Number 2, strategically pick and choose when you revive a teammate. The final circle can be a tense fight for survival, and there are many times that players will have to choose between reviving their teammate or not doing so. This can be a frustrating choice because it will be allowing a teammate to die. However, it is notable that sometimes a player will have to run out in the open if they want to revive their teammate, and this is contradictory to winning strategies. Make sure to pick and choose the right times to revive teammates, and don't be afraid to let them die if it is an especially dangerous situation. Sometimes reviving just isn't feasible. Number 1, always stay behind cover. Staying behind cover is the most important thing to remember during the final circle, and it should apply to every part of both firefights and running into the next zone. Players will be able to peek from behind trees and other structures to have cover while also shooting at their enemies. There are certain times in the final few circles where it can be tempting to run out into the open, for example if the player sees some loot that they want to pick up on the ground. However, the risk is really worth the reward, and staying behind cover can be a life or death decision that a lot of players sometimes fail to correctly. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any of our videos in the future. Also watch the 2 videos that are on your screen because I'm sure you'll love them. With that, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.